Welcome to another episode of Fired Up for Friday, the podcast letting you know what has me fired up for this Friday release schedule for April 17th, 2026. In addition to the albums that have me fired up for Friday, I have the album of last week too, which is a surprise. For those of you who track new releases, I'm sure you have an idea what it is, but you're probably wrong. And as always, I'd like to thank the bands, the labels, and PR, because without them, I'd have nothing to be fired up about. With only so many hours being in a week, I only have so much time to listen to music. So what did I miss? What has you excited? What did I miss these last couple weeks? Let me know in the comments what I need to check out. And without further ado, let's dig on in and find out what has me fired up for this Friday. Have you ever believed in something so much, so strong, and so convincing, it affected the way you feel by blinding your thoughts, your visions, your judgment? Yeah, me too. We've all had that same feeling. But instead of these beliefs being religion, politics, Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, I have belief in the brand new album dropping from LungBurner and Dogma off of Terminus Hate City Records. Now, I've never been one for religion, and I look around the world at all the wonderful work that our elected officials have done, and I find it hard to believe in anything. But after listening to Dogma, I definitely believe in LungBurner. With more twists and turns than your holy scriptures, LungBurner's out to crush you from all different angles, whether you want it or not. Whether it was lyrical, musical, or philosophical, I was here for it all. And as far as how to classify this album or what genre I'd put it in, it's an engaging mix of doom and sludge metal that changes feelings, emotions, tempos from the moment you press play until the last note rings out. Crunchy rhythms and guitars with a saturated mix that's thicker than a slab of bacon, maybe even just as juicy. Dogma was an easy album to believe in, telling tales of what unwavering beliefs and unwavering loyalty amounts to. Remember, no good deed goes unpunished. And we can all look around today to see these emotions in real life, no matter what your views or your religions are. What grabbed my ear the most was the blackened vocals that contrasted some narrative pieces, putting more sound, texture, and little ear candies in the mix. After several run-throughs of LungBurner's Dogma, I realized that the more I listened to Dogma, the more I wanted to listen to Dogma. Some albums close out leaving you filled and satisfied, but not Dogma. It just made me hungrier for more. And with so much jammed into this album, this was another one that was like a scavenger hunt in the mix. And I was looking for every little morsel of ear candy to just dig my teeth into, as there was a ton of deliciousness in this mix. Written, performed, executed, mixed, mastered, produced, they did everything, taking creative control into the hands of themselves. And if it's gonna amount to something like this, please keep control. This thing's great. Don't let anybody tinker with this stuff. To hell with streaming this album, just go order it and be surprised when it arrives, because this thing rips. So much so, I'm giving it an 87. Terminus Hate City's just churning out killer albums this year. I'm excited to see what the remainder of the year has for them. Now, prior to this last week, I was unfamiliar with the band Abrams, as they have more of an alt-rock sound that I'm not quite used to hearing. But they inject some nostalgic feels and textures that really grab my attention, and that reminds me of bands like Nirvana, Tool, Blind Melon, and other 90s alternative and groove rockers. Mile High Metalheads and Denver's Abrams release a pissed off alt rocker that has a gauntlet of emotions from hope and curiosity to my favorites, darkness and despair. On their latest album, Loon, off of Blues Funeral Recordings, you can feel the pent-up frustrations as Abrams does a great job building tension throughout every song, but when it comes time to release that tension, Abrams does it with a huge, expansive, and soaring release of energy. And who doesn't have those same mood swings and contrasts within themselves? And whether it's the state of affairs like wars, famine, financial trouble, or the fact we still don't have that damn King Diamond album titled The Institute. It's these type of frustrations that makes the album Loon such an easily relatable album. And what's my favorite part of this album? These cathartic releases of musical wizardry were captured by the magician Kurt Ballou, who really knows how to layer and surgically place each note, maximizing each precious second of this album. And while there is a lot of gritty tones and dark lyrics, they're well balanced, both lyrically and sonically, making Loon one complete and dynamic journey. And after listening to Abrams' Loon several times, I think they really hit it out of the park on this one. Having both clean and dirty contrasted vocals, with both being highlighted and separated, culminating into one kick-ass album. And I think the album Loon by Abrams is for fans of bands like Mastodon, Red Fang, Baroness, Valkyrie, and even Black Tusk. While this does have that doom sludge stoner sound, but it also has some experimental and some mathy progressive moments that I would relate to bands like Kylesa and Cave In, or maybe even High on Fire and the Foo Fighters. This is going to please a wide array of fans, whether you're in rock, doom, stoner, metal. Good music's good music, and it just crosses genres like that. So, go check out Loon by Abrams. I enjoyed it. So much so, I'm giving it an 83. I like when a band takes a tried and true sound, throws some updates on it, spins it into their own sound, and builds upon some of the successes of yesteryear's music. Case in point, South Carolina's progressive rockers and State of Illusion have dropped their latest progressive album, In Pluto's Ghost. The album begins with a countdown, almost feeling like you're in a spaceship about to blast off, waiting for the signal from NASA. And this countdown sets the tone for tension and release all throughout this album as you progress through it. And this repeated tension creation and release carries on through the whole album to the very end, and I loved it. Certain bands build so much tension and they never release it, for example Neurosis, and that just doesn't do it for me. So being this State of Illusion continually built tension and continually released the tension made this continually pleasing for me. I loved it. Borrowing some tones and feels from rockers like Linkin Park and Chevelle, Pluto's Ghost has a sincerity of other bands like Shinedown and 3 Days Grace, and should please fans of that alt-rock, alt-metal sound, with a lot of the weight of this album being provided by the subject matter, full of grief, loss, depression, introspection, disappointment, and so many of those other dark emotions, making me question some of my own life experiences as I listen through this entire piece. And Pluto's Ghost is more melancholy than I usually prefer. But I know some of you like those darker feels, and that's awesome because this album would be perfect for you. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean that you don't like something. While I was listening away to those sounds from yesteryear rockers, and even though I thought Pluto's Ghost is a bit more melancholy than I usually prefer, I still thoroughly enjoyed this album, and I hope you do too. So strap yourself in and blast off, because I'm giving this thing a 74 to go out and cruise the cosmos. And while we're speaking about progressive metal, let's dig into another progressive metal album. But this one has more of a melancholic sound. Hungary's The Moon and the Night Spirit are back with their latest album, Seeds of the Formless. And Seeds of the Formless is an accurate name for this album as it accurately describes the contents. The Moon and the Night Spirit plant a little seed that grows into a big, beautiful bush that can be described as doom-influenced progressive metal sounds. But being that it's progressive metal, it has some lighter pieces too, which could be progressive rock, so it kind of like straddles the line between the two. But while this thing is heavy from the subject matter, it injects some folk-feeling influences that help lighten it and balance out this 8th studio album. These guys know how to write. So we already talked about the seed part of it, let's talk about the formless part of the album. As formless, atmospheric tones are ever shifting and evolving as this organic music piece evolves into one organic album. Delicate female vocals waft softly and carefully to your ears, crafting more of a sonic soundscape or shadowed by the weight of the negative spaces in the music. a well-written and executed album if you're a fan of ethereal doom or melancholy progressive rock. I think you'll love the mood in the Night Spirit. For fans of bands like Lacuna Coil and Epica, this is a little bit more melancholy and a little bit more diminished, but I think it would please you just the same. Seed of the Formless is a dark album, but I'm going to give this dynamic duo a pair of 7s and a 77. They speak English in Australia, but for some reason, I can't pronounce this word either. Australia is a gold mine for underground rock and metal releases, and I've been digging their music for years. And here's another effort that's brutal as hell, and if it gets much heavier, I'm afraid Australia might sink. Black and death metal band Hebephrenique and their latest album, Decathexis. Come on, man, you guys are killing me. You speak English in that country. Off of Apocalyptic Witchcraft Records is one badass album. Death metal with blackened vocals and influences. This has a dark and doomy feel hanging over top of it, sort of like a dark black cloud that just moves along as the album progresses. And even though with all these clouds and fog, the production is crystal clear and adds to an already heavy experience, making me enjoy this album that much more. And everything's done well on this album, but I think my favorite part of this one was the unhinged vocals, which gives Decathexis that feeling of despair and urgency, as frontman Chris Wolf sounds like he left it all out on the studio floor. Now, tension can be found in the music, which really helps add some weight to this album. And as chaotic as this thing sounds, somehow the drummer's able to carve himself out a little bit of groove right there to just nestle into. It took me several playthroughs to get to the meat and potatoes of this record. Decathexis is a monster album, and is for fans of bands like Gore, Guts, and Mayhem, and every time I run this album, it sounds different to me, and I pick up a different influence. I'm not complaining, it's just a thing that happened. So what does that mean? That means it's going to be pleasing to a wide array of metal fans. And being that I like a wide array of metal sounds, made this a killer album for me. And Decathexis has that old school metal album feel, like the kind that you would just put the CD in the player in your car, and next thing you know, it's like 2 months later, and you're still listening to the same CD because you never took it out. It's that good. How good? Decathexis is getting an 84 from me. This album's excellent. That's how good. You know what else is good? The album of last week. That's what's good. Last week, April 10th, we had a lot of killer albums, so it made it a very tough week for me to decide what the best release was. We had crunchy thrash from Nukem, which I personally loved. And as a longtime fan of Spirit Adrift, I almost guaranteed that that was going to be my selection prior to listening. And especially because it's Spirit Adrift's swan song, making it even extra special. The heavyweights in the legendary Corrosion of Conformity have dropped their latest album, Good God, Bad Man. And that was another punishing album. Or it could have been Archspire's Too Fast to Die, which was a technical death metal masterpiece. Or was it Metal Church's Dead to Rights? It was none of those. So what do you guys think it is? Or is it the one that most of you are betting it is? Descent by Immolation, which was a great album, don't get me wrong. I chose the album that I kept going back to the most last week. But Vomitory's In-Death Throes off of Metal Blade Records was the one that I kept going back to the most last week. This is a straight up solid album. Nothing is innovative or groundbreaking. Very little in bells and whistles or that technical mind-blowing prowess. Playing straight up badass death metal for 37 minutes. No ballads, no filler. 10 tracks of well-written, better executed death metal that has all the favorites that death metal has to offer. Gruff blackened vocals tell tales of death, debauchery, and dereliction, and my favorite part was all the decay. Bright leads over racing, punishing rhythms, where the guitars have a super saturated sound and really thicken in the mix. And while the rhythms are out there to melt faces, the low end is trying to carve out a groove in all this chaos. But somehow they were managed to do it. My head kept banging the whole album. Make sure you stretch your neck out before you listen to this one. I also like that there's a big thrash metal influence on this album. With the changing tempos and perfect pacing, this is for fans of that classic death metal sound. Whether it's 6 Feet Under, Exhumed, Autopsy, Cannibal Corpse, those type of bands. And I'm giving this Bloodbath an 84. So what did I get right? What did I get wrong? What did I miss? And as always, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you in the pit.